MALDEF's 2025 San Antonio Awards Gala is brought to you by Adobe, Friends of MALDEF, the Herrera Law Firm, Carlos Soltero, Welcome Tech, the law offices of Domingo Garcia, Dr. Manuel Berriozabal and the Honorable Maria Antonieta Berriozabal, DeMott, Curtright, and Armendariz, LLP, Norma Cantu, St. Mary's University School of Law, AARP, Texas, Regina Montoya, Methodist Healthcare Ministries, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, Raíces, Spurs Sports and Entertainment, IDRA, the Urban School Leaders Collaborative, the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, Gilbert Cardenas, Senator Jose Menendez, the Mexico, the Americas, and Spain program at Trinity University, Friends of Salina.
Damas y caballeros, please join me in welcoming Emmy Award-winning evening news anchor for Ken's 5 and your host for this evening, Isis Romero.
Hola, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's so great to be here. And welcome to the MALDEF 2025 San Antonio Awards Gala. I am honored to be your host this evening on behalf of the MALDEF Board of Directors and MALDEF President and General Counsel, Thomas Saenz. MALDEF has a tremendous program tonight of amazing honorees, each of whom has devoted their lives to a shared mission of promoting a greater America for all of us, especially our large and growing Latino community. MALDEF opened its doors in 1968 right here in San Antonio, creating a legal organization to promote the civil rights of Latinos living in the United States. Today, MALDEF is known as the Latino legal voice for civil rights in America. For more than 57 years, MALDEF has worked in the courts, in the halls of Congress and state and local legislatures to create new laws and policies with wide-ranging impact for the Latino community and for our nation as a whole. MALDEF works to secure the right to a meaningful vote, to equal education opportunity, to a non-discriminatory workplace, and fairness and justice for all Latinos in our nation. This includes MALDEF's 1982 Supreme Court victory in Plyler versus Doe, which guarantees, yes, which guarantees the right to a free kindergarten through 12th grade public education for all children, regardless of immigration status. It's a victory that is the foundation for ongoing efforts to provide citizenship, not just to dreamers, but to millions of others. Tonight, MALDEF honors 3 individuals who have made immeasurable contributions and are united by a commitment to the principles of equality and fairness for all. I have the pleasure of introducing MALDEF's first esteemed honoree this evening, world-renowned visual artist Vincent Valdez, the recipient of MALDEF's Excellent in the Arts Award. Vincent Valdez was born on San Antonio's South Side. Vincent began his artistic journey at the age of 3. He was inspired by the art created by his great-grandfather, and his talent was encouraged early on by his parents, Arthur and Teresa Valdez. At 9 years old, local Chicano artist and muralist Alex Rubio took Vincent under his wing. Vincent's contributions can be found on murals on the walls of the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center, the San Fernando Cathedral, and the Vietnam War Museum. Throughout his childhood, he won several art contests and made a name for himself even as a young student. Vincent attended Rhode Island School of Design and graduated in 2000 with his BFA. It was here that he created one of his most iconic paintings entitled Kill the Pachuco Bastard as part of his senior art project. This piece depicts the Zoot Suit riots of the 1940s, in which Vincent captures the violence inflicted on Latino youth by American servicemen. It exemplifies several of the recurring themes in Vincent's work, themes of social justice, obfuscated narratives, and historical amnesia. His painting, Kill the Pachuco Bastard, was later acquired by Cheech Marin, featured in his gallery, preserved in the exhibit Chicano Visions, American Painters on the Verge. And since graduation, Vincent has received numerous fellowships, grants, and participated in several residencies. In 2016, he received the Joan Mitchell Foundation grant for painters and sculptors. He was also awarded the Ford and Mellon Foundation's Latinx Artist Fellowship in 2022. Vincent has exhibited worldwide, but his first solo exhibition was at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center's Theater Gallery here in San Antonio. Over the years, he's been featured in the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the National Portrait Gallery, and many more. In this last year, Vincent had a mid-career survey exhibition titled Vincent Valdez, Just a Dream at the Contemporary Art Museum Houston and at the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art. This exhibit features over 2 decades of work, including his early childhood drawings, which started everything. Now let's take a look at the video profile MALDEF created for Vincent.
I first met Vincent at the Guadalupe. He was a student of Alex Rubio, who was working with the Mural Arts program. Alex was very impressed with him. Vincent was very young. He was a brilliant artist already. could draw brilliantly, he could paint brilliantly, but he could also think brilliantly. He understood the community, he understood his responsibilities to that community, he understood his place in that community. He wanted to do well not only for himself, but for all the rest of us.
I remember some of the first works that he was producing based on his family, which is a very important element in his life, due to the family being so supportive of his efforts and his education in the arts. I feel that the significance of Vincent being aware of his environment, of his society, and the importance of being in tune with social politics and the political structure of the world. I think that Vincent is a visionary as far as being able to interpret these symbols and share his message in his paintings and in his words. I think Vincent is one of the true visionary artists of our time, and I was fortunate enough to watch him grow.
Wow, Vincent's mentorship means everything to me. I think as a friend, as an artist, I think to have someone you can look up to, that is kind of showing you the way that it's possible to be an artist, to be a working artist, to make these paintings that are saying something, to never stray away from opening doors, for I think everyone that he mentors or anyone that can, use the opportunity.
Some artists are born to be artists, they really are. I think that's part of Vincent's makeup. He was born to be an artist, He got a scholarship to, I think, every school he went to, because they recognized his ability right away. His influence has been in selection of subject matter. He directs his technical ability towards something important to say. And that is kind of the essence of Chicano art. They're not afraid to take on political situations, which it's getting harder and harder because you can't say boo right now without offending somebody. But that's kind of what Chicanos are all about. I've seen a lot of painters and a lot of Chicano painters, and I've been studying painting since I was 9 years old. And his paintings are full of vibrancy. There's something just vibrant and just jumps out at you. The message of it jumps out at you partly because of the way it's painted, partly because of what he's painting, the historical events, or his take on our fitting into America, soldiers coming home. But the message is clear right away. I mean, you see it, and great paintings are like that. Really great paintings are like that. You just, oh.
He was the Texas Artist of the Year a couple of years ago, given to him by the Houston Art League. He has been named numerous times for numerous art awards. I love the fact that MALDEF is honoring him, because it takes him, in a sense, beyond the art world and into the real world, into the world that he has confronted and painted and dealt with for his whole life. He has always been a fighter for justice. So I think his awards, his art awards are many. He's gotten a Berlin residency. He's gotten a residency from the Smithsonian in Buenos Aires for a couple of weeks. He's been in numerous amazing exhibits. It goes on and on and on. But I love the fact that now the real world is honoring him, because he's been a painter for most of his young life, but he's also lived in the real world for most of his young life, and his work deals with that.
Vincent's art seeks to inspire critical thought in people. I got that out of our personal relationship, not as just a viewer or how I was looking at his work before I met him, but as a friend and as a mentor. He got me to critically think about a lot of things, and that's taken my art to the next level.
Vincent's impact on the art world is that Latino artists are amazing, that Latino artists can tackle global issues, that they can address their community but move beyond their community, that they can address injustice, and that they can still be brilliant artists, that they can still think artistic thoughts that go beyond, I'm going to put paint on canvas, that really delve into the world in which we all live, that say, I can make the world better with my art. That's not something a lot of painters do. And that, to me, that's the most amazing thing, and that's his legacy, to teach other artists that it's not just about them, to alter the art world, and to say to the art world, you should be looking at artists who move beyond their own personal concerns, who move beyond what is good for their careers. Because a lot of artists are going to say, I'm not going to get involved in something like that. It's going to be bad for my career. Vincent doesn't even think about that. He says, I need to address this, and he does. And it's not about his career, it's about making the world better. It's about being a good enough painter to be noticed so that he can say, what I'm saying matters to you. Listen to me. Yeah, you're looking at my painting and you like the way I paint and you really are interested in how I depict things. Look at what I'm depicting.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Vincent Valdez.
All right, good evening. It is a real honor to be with you here tonight in the spirit of solidarity and resistance. At a moment in time like this, we find ourselves as citizens, non-citizens, as citizens of the world, in uncertain moments, dark times, dystopic. We are the United States of amnesia. We learn nothing because we remember nothing. What does it mean to remember, to reflect on what has come before us? And I think about the opportunity of being recognized by a powerful historic legacy like MALDEF is. What an honor. Because I think about that spirit of resistance and what it means at a moment like today. We have a lot of work ahead of us. I think often about a quote by tremendous American artist Octavia Butler, writer, who once said, "There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. This is precisely the times that artists get to work." And so I think about the community that raised me here in San Antonio on the South Side. And I'd like to recognize my father, Arthur Valdez, who's here tonight. And my mother, Teresa Santana, who's here with us in spirit. But I think about this memory, this early memory that registered for me, something, it clicked that light bulb in me, in my young mind prematurely. My dad, like many San Antonio dads, obsessed with his lawn, right? Every blade of grass, every Sunday out there, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I remember these moments on several occasions throughout my childhood. We grew up right off of Nagalitos, and in between Nagalitos and Zazamora Street, communities divided by railroad tracks. Like many communities find themselves throughout, scattered across America. And on many occasions, we'd see individuals jumping off that train and wandering into the neighborhoods. And these individuals carrying backpacks, tired, sweaty, afraid. But I'll never forget the spirit of my parents, their compassion and their charity. They would greet, my dad would greet them as they walked down Taft Street and would speak to them in Spanish, would welcome them to sit down and have a break on his front porch, would offer them water, a few bucks for the road and their journey, while my mother would always run inside and make her amazing breakfast tacos, and would wrap them in foil and hand it to them as not only as a gift but as a token of survival. And I never forgot that. It really shaped my young mentality about Well, it made me question critically. So it's one thing to be an artist, but what do you do with this gift? Being an artist comes with a great responsibility. You must say something. You must do something. This work must be of service to, in some small way, to other people. And so I also think about, like you saw some of those photographs when I was 9, 10 years old, individuals like Kathy Vargas and Alex Rubio, who's here tonight. Where are you, Alex? Table number something. Yeah, there he is. An individual in the community of San Antonio that has now mentored 4 generations of young San Antonio artists, prepares them, nurtures them, develops them, sends them on their way into the world. This is a tremendous act of service to our community. The power of community. My partner, Adriana Corral, tremendous artist from El Paso, Texas, sitting right here. Her spirit and her fire, not only in her work, but in her presence as a human being. It's important. Community is everything. Community is what keeps us alive. Community is what keeps us moving forward. I was sitting in the studio earlier this week and watching this tremendous documentary titled 92. And I saw a small, subtle detail that really struck a chord with me. And I've been thinking about it every day since then. There was a sign, a protest sign that was tossed aside, discarded on the sidewalk in the streets of Los Angeles. And on it read, "Politicians will never lead. Politicians always follow. Communities never follow. Communities will always lead." This is the spirit of resistance. This is the act that will continue to propel us forward, never looking back, always looking forward. In the darkest of hours, organizations, communities like MALDEF, like Latinos in the United States, this is our moment. We must not give up on each other. There is plenty worth fighting for. I will continue to do whatever I can in any small, minute way to push back when they give you a piece of ruled paper. Always write in the other direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent, for reminding us of the strength and resilience within our community and for refusing to let us forget our history. Thank you so much. Well, now it is with great pleasure that I introduce MALDEF's next honoree this evening, Celina Moreno, President and CEO of IDRA. Celina is the recipient of MALDEF's Excellence in Legal Service Award. Celina Moreno has been a lifelong advocate for justice and a cornerstone in coalition building, all with the aim to tangibly improve the lives of our community. She honed her skills at the University of Houston, where she earned her law degree. Later, she attended the Harvard Kennedy School and received a master's degree in public policy. Celina's earliest impact in advocacy was when she directed the School to Prison Pipeline Project at the Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid nonprofit. This project aimed to educate students and parents on how to navigate the legal system in order to lessen the likelihood of students ending up in prison. She then joined MALDEF and eventually became the Southwest Regional Counsel in 2017. Here, she was a visionary young leader who was instrumental in MALDEF's fight to secure rights for students in Texas. Selena helped to defend the Texas DREAM Act, challenged discriminatory redistricting laws which would have threatened school funding, and spoke out against conditions at the Hutto Residential Center which detained immigrants. In 2019, Selena became the president and CEO of IDRA, the Intercultural Development Research Association. IDRA is dedicated to providing equal education opportunity by training educators, conducting research, and engaging in legal advocacy. Under her leadership, IDRA has expanded its national impact and honed its focus on increasing college access, fair funding, fair discipline, and bilingual education. Selena is passionate about developing underserved youth into leaders. She has launched several initiatives at IDRA to help youth develop skills in research, leadership, and community building. IDRA trains students from middle school to young professionals just taking their first steps in the career world. Thanks to Selena, IDRA has also begun leading San Antonio's Alamo STEM ecosystem, which convenes leaders of industry, city, nonprofit, college, and K-12 to cultivate STEM educational opportunities. Selena has not only created programs to encourage our youth to succeed, but she also has gone into classrooms herself. Selena has joined Texas A&M University Commerce's Department of Educational Leadership as an adjunct professor, where she can have a more personal impact on students. It is thanks to her tireless dedication that our students have better access to the tools, skills, and opportunities they need to secure a brighter future. Let's take a look at the video MALDEF produced to pay tribute to Selena's work.
Selena's drive comes from a very deep and personal place. You know, her parents met and were active in the Chicano civil rights movement. Both her mother and her stepmother were public educators, her mother in the community college system, her stepmother in the K-12 system. So her drive for social justice, for community impact, comes from a deeply personal, familial place. And of course, today, as the mother of 2 children under the age of 3 and 3 fabulous stepchildren, her day-to-day work, I know in her day-to-day work, she is constantly thinking about them and about building a future for them and building a future for them and their peers, where every child has strong educational opportunities.
I'm most proud of seeing her grow as a leader. I think that she is an incredible leader of IDRA now. I've seen her lead in other ways in the past, organizing people to achieve different policy campaigns, to go to the Capitol in Austin and testify. She just has had a lot of examples of leadership in her life that I look up to. But I think her leadership now that I have seen evolve, especially in these really challenging times, is one thing that I think is one of her greatest accomplishments. She has put together a team of incredible people at IDRA that do different aspects of work, and she's been strategic in her vision of how she uplifts people to do this work. As I said before, she is a brilliant and tough person, but she also leads with a lot of compassion, and so I think that is one lesson that I've definitely learned from her, is how to be that type of full leader.
When Selena was a lawyer at MALDEF, she represented dreamers, and she did it with such a special way to do it. She really empowered those students who felt very defeated. She gave them voice. She represented them with dignity and respect. And I think for me, to be able to see that was something very special, because she was a woman of color talking about the stories of dreamers in a way that was very authentic, in a way that was passionate, but also assertive. And she made a point of why these dreamers needed needed to be represented, needed to be part of Texas.
Selena has a very clear vision of the work she does. She wants to build a future where every single child has the educational opportunity to define themselves, to thrive, and to find joy, regardless of their zip code, their racial or ethnic background, or any other factor.
I think that Selena is building a legacy that is truly centered on uplifting young people. She believes deeply that youth should be part of this work, that we are not working simply on their behalf, but we need to be working deeply with them. They have a vision of the future that they want to see, and I think she has been strategic in how she leads IDRA to support that. So for example, we have a number of student advocacy programs that have grown under her leadership in Georgia and Texas and across the region that really focus on building up the advocacy skills of young people along with their families. And so I think that her vision for young people and how they must be involved in the future that we all need to see is one of the most important sort of legacies that she's building.
What I admire the most about Selena is that she can be a woman, that she can be a mother, a scholar, an activist, a lawyer, that she can be everything she wants to be and lead with integrity and passion. I think she teaches younger generations that women can be anything they want to be and that they can be good at it. You don't have to choose just to be a lawyer. You don't have to choose just to be an activist. You can be it all and be good at it. And that it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of passion and drive. And I think Selena really reflects that in our communities. I admire Selena because she's a real chingona that so many mujeres are looking up for her. And when she speaks, people listen. And I think that that's a really unique quality that I admire and that I am just so blessed to know someone like her.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome and congratulations to Selena Moreno.
Thank you, Tom, and to the MALDEF board for such a meaningful honor and for your bold leadership. Thanks especially for MALDEF's partnership with IDRA spanning 5 decades, from Plyler v. Doe to the Texas' first bilingual education law, from the long lines of Texas school finance cases to today's advocacy for the nation's over 5.3 million bilingual learners. Felicidades to my fellow honorees, Vincent Valdez and Sister Norma Pimentel. You move us to resist state-sponsored cruelty with our own humanity. Gracias. I am blessed to be homegrown in the city of San Antonio and a product of its Title I schools, its cariño, and its rich civil rights history. I am nourished by the unconditional love of my family, and in this very wild and sleepless and happy time, nursing a 1-year-old and chasing around a 2-year-old, I'm especially grateful for the unwavering support of my husband, Lucio. Eres todo. Lucio and I are both children of Chicano civil rights activists. I want to recognize my mama, Rosa Maria Gonzalez, who as a college counselor helped countless students realize their dreams. My suegros, Maria Luisa and Hector, who were part of the Crystal City walkouts and subsequent movement that changed the path for Latinos in this country. My stepmom, Imelda, who was a former educator and Valley Interfaith organizer. And my dad, Luis Moreno, an attorney with a small law practice who regularly sent in that donation check to MALDEF and talk to his kids about their landmark wins. I share this honor with each of them. My dad thought one of the most patriotic things that you could do was ask questions and challenge authority. Oh, and make my brother Luis and I sing patriotic songs during our car rides to school. Corny, right? It's been 18 years since his passing, and I can still hear his resounding voice singing, "This land is your land, this land is my land." And whether it's immigrants that are recent to this country or those who can trace their roots to pre-colonialism, this is our land. We belong here, and we deserve respect as an integral part of this nation's past, present, and future. My legal and policy work would not be possible without our fearless partners and clients. Like Carla Perez, who as a student had the courage to join MALDEF's case to defend DACA. I had the distinct honor of defending Gala in her deposition in that case and fighting alongside her on those many late nights in the Texas Capitol. Like Carla, the Garibay sisters, Julieta and Montserrat, are doers. They have felt the pain of unjust policies, but they don't just hurt, they hope and then they hustle. Teaming up with IDRA, Julieta, who is a co-founder of United We Dream, is leading the organizing efforts for Texas's in-state tuition defense for undocumented immigrants. Montserrat recently represented our community as President Biden's Assistant Deputy Secretary of Education. And along with the amazing team at IDRA, is one of the most relentless voices for bilingual learners I have ever met. These poderosas are truly unstoppable, and they're here with us tonight. Let's hear it again for them. At MALDEF, I learned about zealous legal advocacy from the legendary Nina Perales during our cases to defend DACA, the anti-immigrant SB 4, Senate Bill 4, and to ensure the protection of the rights of Latino voters. I learned from Marisa Bono, my partner in crime, to defend the Texas DREAM Act, to challenge a whites-only cemetery, to protect the rights of bilingual learners, and to fight for poor school districts and students in 2 Texas school finance cases against the state of Texas. And Luis Figueroa, who helped me build broad-based coalitions in the Texas legislature. I want to say to all the former and current MALDEF attorneys, I see you, I know your sacrifices, and bet tomorrow when we each go on with our Saturday mornings, MALDEF is going to be there in the office working on behalf of the community. Gracias, MALDEF. I am so grateful to lead the brilliant team at IDRA who fiercely advocate educational justice. Tonight, we are sorely missing our beloved President Emerita, who passed away last month. Dr. Maria Cuca Robredo Montesel, presente. At IDRA, we believe in strengthening neighborhood public schools to ensure that all students, regardless of their race, their language, or their immigration status, can succeed. The Washington Post once called IDRA an organization of gadflies, and that tracks. A social gadfly is somebody that rouses others from complacency and inspires action. And the IDRA staff and board definitely have gadfly ganas. Y'all are my heroes, and I want to ask y'all to please stand and be recognized. So much progress that has been made over my and my parents' lifetime is at stake right now. And we all want for our kids what our parents wanted for us, to live lives of joy and of purpose, to face change and then be stronger for it, and to give back to our community. And when our babies, Yasmin and Augusto, ask us 20 years down the road, during those dark times, who is standing up for our future, I'm gonna say how proud I was to fight next to the legal lions at MALDEF and visionaries at IDRA, behind our daughters, Rocio and Ileana, who are the next generation of leaders, and alongside so many of you in this room who give off puro gadfly vibes. Gracias a todos. Gracias, MALDEF.
Thank you, Selena, for your inspired leadership and tireless dedication to providing equal access to education for all. Thank you again, and congratulations. Well, now I have the pleasure of introducing MALDEF's final esteemed honoree for this evening, the president and CEO of the Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley, Sister Norma Pimentel, MJ, receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award or Excellence in Community Service Award. Sister Norma Pimentel's family hails from Matamoros and Chiapas, but she was born in Brownsville, Texas. She studied art in college and earned a bachelor's degree from Pan American University. In 1978, Sister Norma entered the Missionaries of Jesus against her family's wishes. She was then able to earn a master's degree in theology from St. Mary's University and a second master's in counseling from Loyola University, Chicago. Sister Norma developed her passion for helping others while working with refugees at the Casa Oscar Romero. Later, she joined the Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley as a counselor, helping to provide food and shelter to immigrants crossing the border. In 2004, she became the executive director of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley, and she now oversees the charitable branch of the Diocese of Brownsville, which is the second largest Catholic diocese in the U.S. Sister Norma has been instrumental in assisting programs like homelessness prevention, disaster relief, pregnancy care, and other humanitarian relief efforts. In 2014, Sister Norma established the Humanitarian Respite Center to aid the large influx of immigrants entering through the southern border. In just 1 decade, the Humanitarian Respite Center has provided aid to over 500,000 immigrants. Sister Norma has been referred to as absolutely fearless in her efforts to create a safe place for immigrants. In 2020, she was included in Time's list of the 100 most influential people in the world. Norma is also known as the late Pope Francis's favorite nun. Her work as a humanitarian continues to touch people everywhere and inspires us all. Now let's enjoy a video MALDEF created as a tribute to Sister Norma Pimentel.
When I first met Sister, my impression was this is a very humble servant of God and anyone that's in need. Anyone. Doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter who they are. She is there to serve in a very authentic, sincere way. What I found out later was she is the toughest person I know. A luchadora with grace, which is the combination you need from someone. It also became clear that Sister's singular focus is helping these families, these children, these people that are here to make America better and make their own lives better. And that is what she strives to do every single day, and do it with dignity.
Well, what drives Sister Norma, I think, is very evident by the vocation she chose. I think she's a very spiritual person. I think she enjoys serving God and serving others, especially people, the ones that are most vulnerable. And I see a lot of passion with her, and that's what makes her special.
On paper, there's a lot of things we can look at to see what Sister Norma has accomplished. I think she was named one of the 100 most influential people by Time magazine. She's been, she was featured in Texas Monthly as one of the most powerful people in Texas. I think Notre Dame has given her the La Terre Award, which is the oldest and most prestigious award any American Catholic can receive. And that's an award that's been going back almost 150 years. So on paper, she's amazing. But beyond the paper, her accomplishments are measured in the number of the lives that she's touched and that she's changed. It's a lot.
So many accomplishments. I think getting, working within the hierarchy of the Catholic Church in and of itself, without going into a dissertation about that, it's extraordinary. She understands the political nuances of her work. She understands the tightrope that often you have to work in a hierarchy. She understands the role of women and what that means in the church. And she's able to maneuver through all of that in a very powerful way, maintaining her direction always. And so that's a lesson for others. Sometimes you blame the environment for not being able to do things. She's been in a tough environment, politically, within the church, within the communities, and she maintains her authentic self throughout.
What I've learned from Sister Norma is to never stop caring, to never stop loving, to never stop serving. She embodies what St. Francis always said, and that is evangelize always and use words only when necessary. She is living scripture. You can go read the Bible, you can read about our responsibilities, and certainly scripture teaches. But watching Sister Norma and how she takes care of hundreds of thousands of needy migrants and refugees and homeless and others, she is a living Bible. She is living scripture. The other thing she's taught me is to be courageous. That woman fears nothing. She fears nobody. She fears no government, no power. She just conquers with love and with compassion and with mercy.
I think what we'll remember Sister for is her compassion, her notion of what it means to be a child that's hungry or taken away from a parent. I've seen her and heard her talk, her stories about how even the Border Patrol man that she would be dealing with, when she tells a story or talks to a child, are brought to their own knees and their own tears. And so I think she will be known for teaching us how to have strength during the tough time, how to have sustained leadership over that time, how to put self aside and maintain focus on important work that is not for yourself.
Sister Norma is just driven to love human life, and that is what drives her. Every human life for her has dignity and worth and deserves respect. She's the Energizer Bunny. She will never stop helping people, especially those who need it the most. Well, maybe I'm a little biased, but I think Sister Norma's legacy over time is going to be that of a great saint. Saint Teresa of Calcutta took care of the poor over there in India and in elsewhere, but Sister Norma is the Saint Teresa of the immigrant, of the refugee. I believe that Sister Norma will be canonized a saint.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome and congratulations to Sister Norma Pimentel.
Muchas gracias. Wow. Pues yo creo que me parece que tal vez hay muchas personas en mi vida que me han influido mucho para ser por qué estoy aquí esta noche con ustedes y todo lo que he logrado. Hay una persona en particular, pues claro que mi padre, si no se le hubiera metido la locura de venirse a Estados Unidos, ¿verdad? Que se le dijo, voy a probar a ver cómo me vaya en el otro lado. Pues nací aquí y así estoy aquí. So, there's a person in my life that very early on, she was very instrumental to help me have confidence in myself to be me. Siempre me decía, Norma, desempaquétate, sé tú, anímate a hablar, a hacer, no tener miedo. Creo que esta señora es una religiosa que vino de España y con una personalidad muy definida en el amor a Dios, a la iglesia y al pueblo. Ella era la hermana Sister Juliana García de España. La verdad que sí, es una persona que ayudó a transformarme, a ser yo, a dejar que Dios me llevara donde Dios me estaba llamando a ser. So, realmente yo dediqué mi vida al inmigrante porque soy de la frontera. I'm from the border. I'm a puro 956, como se dice, ¿verdad? Con mucho orgullo, soy del Valle. And the thing is that being at the border, you get to experience what it means to be on both sides, Yeah. You do everything from vas al otro lado a ver unos tíos o a la abuela y de este lado pues a la escuela y cosas así, ¿verdad? So, but you see the needs of people and that became very real for me. And so the fact that God decided, mira, yo te quiero acá, aquí, quiero que me ayudes con unas cosas que son importantes para mí porque my life was going in one direction. I'm an artist. I was very fortunate to sit next to Vince because really that was my passion since I can remember. And that's why I went to school to study art. But God pulled me and turned me 180 degrees in another direction so that I could make a difference in the lives of so many people that needed me. And so I chose to change my direction because He decided that this is where He wanted me, and I said yes. So I dedicated myself to follow this, something within me that told me that I needed to do something good for somebody else, and that is God. God is calling me to do this. And so, when as a religious and getting involved at the border with all that was happening with the immigrants coming to our communities in great numbers, I had one experience that I share a lot, but because that experience that I had back then in 2014, when immigrant families were arriving in great numbers and they were just dropped off at the bus station, and we got involved to try to help them, feed them and clean them and be present to them. But there was one thing that I heard a lot was that there was a lot of kids that were in detention, and people from up north were telling me, Sister, what are you doing about these children? And I said, I don't see any children by themselves. So I asked Judge Cortez, help me get into those detentions where they say these kids are. I want to see those kids. I want to see what's happening. And I got permission to go in. That experience was so grounded me to understand what was really happening in our communities, in our country. I stood there in a detention facility. Nobody had ever gone into a detention facility other than Border Patrol and officers. I basically opened the doors for the rest of the world to get permission to go in as well, and see what was happening with these kids and people at the detention facility. I saw all these cells, because it's a processing facility. It's not a place to stay longer than maybe 24 hours or something like that. It's just to process them and move them out of there. But these kids could not be moved from there. There were thousands of them in cells, I was standing with some officers, and all around us was these cells with a big window, and all these little faces were just looking at us, They were all gray, because the mud of crossing the river had already dried in their faces and in their clothing, and so faces full of tears, just staring at us. And I said to the officers, I want to go in there with them. And they said, no, ma'am, you can't go in there. I said, but I want to pray with them. And of course, how can you say no to a nun that wants to pray, right? So I got myself in. Pues se vieron y dijeron, pues vamos a dejarla entrar. So I did. But it was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. To barely be able to walk to one of those cells. There were so many of them. Little ones, not older than 10 years old. All looking up at me, holding my dress. Sácame de aquí, por favor. Pues yo también me puse a chillar. It was so hard to see those faces and those innocent little lives. Me daban ganas de correr con ellos y llevármelos a todos. So les dije, vamos a rezar. And they prayed with me. Diosito, ayúdanos. And they prayed with me. And the officers, now they were looking inside. They were in the window, and they too were crying. When I walked out of that space, the officer tells me, Sister, thank you. You helped us realize they're human beings. Somehow I think that in all that we do, in all that is happening today, and we somehow lose sight of our own humanity in trying to do our jobs, in trying to be one thing or another. But there's only one thing we need to do and be, and that is truly connected with our own humanity and live out that which is within us that pulls us to be our very best to care for one another. Border Patrol agents were caught there in a situation that put them, that made them not understand what they had to do, or maybe do with, but not lose sight of their own goodness within that who they are. Later on, I get to know the most of all of them, and had beautiful experiences with them where they shared how they care for the immigrants. And I think that is what we're all called. All of tonight has been beautiful and wonderful to hear all the amazing things that MALDEF does. And I feel good, I feel inspiring. And what inspires me also is, as much as I've dedicated myself to do everything I can, I remember once during the highest points when we were getting like thousands, every single day I would receive 1,000 people at our center, every single day. And just help them as best we could to help them feel better, to feel that their dignity is restored and that their life matters. And I would go across to Reynosa and Matamoros to try to see what I can do over there as well. And many times I would get things that people donated to me and fill these bags, and I would just cross walking the bridge, and somebody would pick me up on the other side. One day I remember this lady. She was definitely much older than I was, and she saw me carrying these bags, and she said to me, déjeme le ayudo. Y le digo, no, está bien, yo estoy bien, gracias. You know, I can handle it, muchas gracias. And she answered me, permítame poner mi granito de arena en lo que usted está haciendo, porque usted está salvando muchas vidas. Y yo por lo menos puedo poner ese granito de arena cargándole sus bolsas. I think this is the spirit of who we must be to one another. There's always something that we can do. So don't limit ourselves to just do the minimum. Ese granito de arena es lo que todos tenemos que poner. Y a veces ese granito de arena, esta noche lo puedes hacer apoyando a MALDEF. Gracias.
Thank you, Sister Norma Pimentel, for fighting to create a space for the hungry to eat, the tired to rest, and the weary to lay their heads. Thank you, and congratulations again. Well, now let's welcome to the stage MALDEF President and General Counsel, Thomas Saenz.
So, note to self, never follow someone who's going to be canonized. Thank you all for being here tonight. There are more of you than has been true in the last several years. And I know that that is a testament to our extraordinary honorees, but I also want to note that it is exceptional. MALDEF, like so many organizations who engage in progressive social justice and racial justice work, faces challenges. You may have noticed a Friends of MALDEF entry among the sponsors of tonight. And while we appreciate that support, it is entirely because a supporter, institutional, preferred not to have their name directly associated with MALDEF. While they gave us the money, they wanted to be identified as Friends of MALDEF. And that's what we've been seeing in the last 9 months across the country, that there is concern, trepidation, hesitation about supporting an organization like ours. And in every dinner since the notorious election, we have seen reductions in attendance, but not here in San Antonio. So I want to say thank you. Thank you. More about your importance in a minute, but let me begin, as I usually do, by thanking all of those responsible for such an inspirational evening. Let me begin with our extraordinary MC, the returning Isis Romero, whose grace in command of this room is really unmatched. And thank you again for leading us through an extraordinary evening. I want to recognize that here in the city where MALDEF was founded some now 57 years ago, we have so many former but continuing Maldefians, starting with board members. There are many board members, past and present, in the room, and I would like to ask each of them to please stand and accept our gratitude for all of the extraordinary support, consistent, strong support that the board has given us throughout the years. Board members, please stand. And this gala, more than any other, is a reunion of past MALDEF staff members. There are so many of them who come back We're so proud to see what they've done since leaving MALDEF. We honored one of them tonight. But we're also so gratified that they returned to join us to celebrate the ongoing mission and the ongoing accomplishments of MALDEF staff. We have so many past leaders here, past regional councils, past directors. Let me ask all of the past and present MALDEF staff members to please stand and allow us to thank you for your support. So we are, of course, unfortunately, between regional councils. Our most recent and very accomplished regional councils, Fatima Menendez, is here, but no longer on the staff of MALDEF. So we had no presentation from the regional council. So I do want to recognize and ask each of them to stand. The San Antonio MALDEF staff members, Carmen Leja, Isabel Pina, Nina Perales, Julia Longoria, and let me ask our recent interns who have been here to come back to help us, our recent interns, to stand as well. So as you know, putting together an event like this is never easy. Takes lots of hard and consistent work, and I want to recognize some of those responsible. Our Vice President, Gina Montoya, Bryant Gomez, Jessica Barona, Destiny Cortez, Jose Delgado, Israel Delgado, and numerous others for helping us to put together such a successful San Antonio Gala. And of course, I want once again to thank each of our extraordinarily eloquent and inspiring honorees, the brilliant and incisive Vincent Valdez, our own tenacious and wise Selena Moreno, and I do have to recognize the long-standing partnership with IDRA, which goes back, as she indicated, to Plyler and beyond. And of course, the incredibly inspiring and compassionate Sister Norma Pimentel. Now, as many of you know, I have had the great honor of leading MALDEF as its staff executive for just over 16 years. And indeed, when I became President and General Counsel in August of 2009, this gala was the first at which I had the opportunity to address the crowd. So if you discount the one cancellation due to the pandemic, this is the 16th time that I have the great honor of speaking to you, and I will hopefully keep it short. But I say all of that to indicate that this is perhaps the most difficult presentation I have had to make in those 16 years. Because the simple and undeniable fact is that our nation is in crisis. Now, that is not only a crisis of humanity, though it is certainly that. It is not only a crisis of governance, and it is certainly that. But it is a constitutional crisis of unprecedented dimension. We have had occasion over these recent years, this is of course now the second Trump administration during my tenure as president of MALDEF, we have had occasion to talk about the critical importance of the rule of law. But I have come to understand, mainly from our media, that too many across the country do not understand what it means to risk the loss in our country of the rule of law. It is not just about losing democracy, because democracy could be lost and we would nonetheless face a consistent application of law across persons and geographies and subject matters. But the loss is greater when we talk about the rule of law. And I want to define what that means, at least from the perspective of MALDEF, whose mission for now over 57 years has been about ensuring that the rule of law becomes real and prevails in our country. The rule of law is at bottom about consistency in application of law, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of income, regardless of position, regardless of power, and frankly, regardless of citizenship. That consistent application of the law means that every person appreciates and has the obligation and the benefit of the law applied to them in equal measure as all others. There is, in the end, only one thing that can overcome that consistency under the rule of law, and that is what we've heard much about tonight. That is compassion and humanity. It is only grace, then, that can overcome consistency in the rule of law. But today, in the United States, we face the exact opposite, where what is being allowed to overcome consistency is privilege, position, influence, and long-standing power. That is the opposite of grace overcoming consistency in the rule of law. And so we strive at MALDEF, together with so many allies in communities across the country, to try to restore that consistency. But to illustrate more concretely what I mean, it is about consistency of geography. It is about the fact that my home city of Los Angeles should not have faced a siege this past summer. A siege not by some outside of government force, some insurrectionist detail, but a siege by our own government in the form of immigration officers aided and abetted by National Guards members and by even the Marines. No city, no state should face that kind of siege in contrast to the rest of the country, occasioned simply because neighbors stood up for neighbors and protested what they saw in the streets. Indiscriminate arrests, violent confrontations undertaken by officers of the law wearing masks in unmarked vehicles without uniforms or badges to identify themselves as anything other than the thugs they were acting as in abducting people from the parking lots of Home Depots and Walmarts, from sidewalks in downtown Los Angeles and the neighboring heavily Central American community of Pico Union. Consistency under the rule of law means that no city, no state, no geography should face that kind of siege from others from elsewhere in the country. The rule of law also means consistency across time, meaning that we should not have now 60 years of private enforcement of the consequential Voting Rights Act of 1965 only applied to Latinos after 1975. But after decades and decades of private enforcement, including by MALDEF staff leaders across the decades, that we should not now face the prospect of a Supreme Court considering a conclusion endorsed by one circuit across the country that private individuals have no right to enforce that most effective and impactful of civil rights legislation in our history. But we face that today. Consistency under the rule of law also means consistency on doctrine, meaning that a Supreme Court majority that just over 2 years ago declared that even the highly limited and narrowly tailored consideration of race in higher education admissions must be struck down, cannot 2 years later say in a shadow docket decision that consideration of race by armed officers enforcing immigration laws is somehow okay because of a long-standing precedent. There is no way to explain such an inconsistency. If our Constitution says no consideration of race in benefit of Black and Latino students who have faced discrimination throughout their young lives, then it must mean that there can be no consideration of race, however narrowly tailored or limited, in enforcing civil laws against citizens who appear to be Latino, therefore suspect to immigration enforcement forces. Consistency under the rule of law also means consistency of process. That we should not ever face the unprecedented one afternoon initiation and striking down of duly enacted legislation in this state of Texas granting regular tuition to undocumented students. But that is what happened here in early June of 2025. While people were celebrating, as they should, the legislature's adjournment without acting on proposed legislation to repeal the quarter-century-long provision of regular tuition rates. I call them regular, not in-state, because people outside of this room don't understand. And we must be clear to them, this is not something special or unique. This is granting regular tuition rates to students who were raised and educated in this state for a quarter of a century. And while that celebration was ongoing, the federal government, under the least qualified attorney general in our history, colluded with your attorney general to have a case filed in the afternoon, to have a consent decree agreeing to strike down that democratically enacted law of more than a quarter century in standing, a consent decree to strike that down an hour or two later, and then a judge whose infamy is well-deserved choosing to sign that consent decree and eliminate the law that very afternoon with no hearing, with no public acknowledgement whatsoever. That is inconsistent with what our Constitution guarantees. And so among the many things that MALDEF is doing, we immediately acted within a week to seek to intervene on behalf of affected students, to present the argument that Paxton should have presented, to demonstrate quite clearly that there is a reason that no administration of either party for a quarter century has challenged the Texas DREAM Act, We came forward, working again with courageous young people, willing to step forward to challenge what is not right, what is being undermined about the rule of law. We did it in the name of Students for Affordable Tuition, SAT. Now, when I told the young staff attorneys working on that case that we would do it in the name of Students for Affordable Tuition, SAT, they made a face because they thought I was referring to the standardized tests that they had so recently completed in their lives and that we all don't really like. But the truth is, it's called SAT for San Antonio, Texas, where MALDEF was founded, where we continue to enjoy so much support, not for an execrable test. It's about this city and its history in ensuring that the rule of law shall prevail. Now, the crisis that I mentioned is daunting, and its dimensions are further shaped and increased with each day that passes. Whether it's about taking away eligibility of certain young lawyers for student loan forgiveness, or about seeking to stop the littlest of children from receiving Head Start services, we know that the attacks on the rule of law will continue until we collectively end them. And if anyone in this room has a doubt about the centrality of the Latino community, our community, in combating, in overturning this regime that would seek to return us to the darkest days of the rule of law in this country prior to a civil war where our forebears fought to ensure that the words of the Constitution would be made real. We now face the counter-attack, where there are forces in this country who would take rights assigned by our Constitution to every person and would seek to say that some human beings among us, children, the elderly, the workers who sustain our livelihood and our economy, would seek to call some of them constitutionally less than persons. If you have doubts about the centrality of our community to this targeted assault on the rule of law, let the examples I've given, all of which central on us. It is not a coincidence, for example, that the attempt to roll back the private right of action under the Voting Rights Act comes just as Latinos are reaching greater and greater size, prominence, and political potential in our country. As we are so central, we have a special role to play in combating this assault on the rule of law, in restoring consistency to a point where we can rise to the higher level of only compassion and grace overcoming that consistency. But we know in this room, and we must share beyond this room, that our community is more than up to this task. You needn't go no further back than 1954, 70 years ago, when Gus Garcia from this city strode into the Supreme Court and explained to justices from the Eastern Seaboard who had no comprehension of what life was like for Latinos, Mexican Americans in Texas and across the Southwest, and he explained it to them. But the fact is, we know from our history that there are hundreds of thousands of Gus Garcias among us today. That there are hundreds of thousands of Ematanayukas among us today, that there are hundreds of thousands of Willie Velasquez's among us today, that there are hundreds of thousands of Vilma Martinez's among us today. But much more than that, our community is grounded not just in those hundreds of thousands, but in the millions of fathers and mothers, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters who daily sacrifice in the tenacity of their work, in the depth of their commitment, in the undefinable depth of their love for their children and their neighbors' children. Our tenacity is our greatest historical characteristic. Our strength is a clear and close second. Our genius overarches all. And we know then that this challenge, this crisis, this unprecedented humanitarian governance and constitutional crisis is one that we can overcome together with our allies through tenacious advocacy and strong commitment. I know that before I leave this position as President and General Counsel of MALDEF, I will be able to proclaim, following many others who will do so as well, that the rule of law has been restored in our nation, and it has been restored through the people of the Latino community and all of our allies. Thank you all for being here this evening. We look forward to working with all of you in achieving this extraordinary and necessary, essential accomplishment.
Thank you, Thomas. And once again, thank you all for supporting MALDEF's San Antonio Gala. Let's give another round of applause for each of tonight's honorees as well as sponsors. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for having me serve as your host on this very special night. It was truly an honor. Thank you. And that completes our program for tonight. We'll see you next year. Good night.